The Chicken Wing Ninjas and Bizmo the Cleaning Ninja Troll. Lesson number 4. The word non-virtue. The word non-virtue means a feeling and behavior that harms us or through us harms another person. Many of the arguments and struggles in the world are created by the bad feelings and behavior that we make together, most of the time not on purpose. Learning about the non-virtues and why we have them inside is a very important part of understanding how to live with this part of being a person we cannot remove. There are just as many types of non-virtues as there are virtues in us, and that is because learning about ourselves and our behavior is an artistic skill that is first understood through a fancy art word called contrast. A way of saying how opposites help us see stuff. Kind of like how the dark side of the yin-yang symbol helps us see the white side, so we can see the whole thing. You may already know some non-virtues we experience like hate, gossip, cowardice, and cruelty. But remember, they are just words we use to describe certain feelings and behaviors that are not what we are, but are what gets into the world through a person when they control them rather than that person managing them in themselves. You see, the thing about non-virtues is that we can only learn to manage them in ourselves and not for another. And with practice and work, we can grow good and beautiful things out of them. But sometimes we try to ignore the non-virtues in ourselves because it can be difficult and hard work to grow good things from them. And this is when the good stuff fades and the bad stuff gets out. Sometimes a group of people try to control what they decide are non-virtues of other people with fear, anger, and intimidation because they don't believe the same thing, which often creates big arguments that can injure and harm people, and sometimes even creates war. This kind of learning can often seem strange and destructive, at first because it begins as a shade of fighting we all recognize but cannot see properly because it is so familiar in the world. A way of saying it's everywhere. But don't worry, this isn't a bad thing. Think of it as a kind of rocket fuel that is best understood in small amounts when we are young, so that when we are bigger, we can go to higher places together rather than just blowing things up. Let's look into the word non-virtue and see what Chicken Wing Ninja story we find inside. Wow, there is a lot of knowledge inside this word. Let's see. It looks like the story, I Know Fighting. This is a good one. Are you ready? All right, let's begin. A boy about 10 years old and a girl who was almost 10 were in trouble for fighting in school. The boy kept pulling the girl's hair, and after telling him many times to stop, the girl got mad and pushed him off his chair. No one knows for sure why things like this happen to some and not to others, but for sure the Chicken Wing Ninjas had something to do with it. As it turned out, they had a principal that just so happened to understand how the many shades of fighting like bullying and self-defense are best understood before they become something far more harmful for both attackers and defenders. And so, the principal decided that they had to learn about the shades of fighting at a martial arts school. Certainly not what the two children expected, but nonetheless, their principal stuck to her decision. After about 4 classes, the boy said to the teacher in a very rude way in front of all the class, "I know what fighting is, and you don't know anything about fighting. This isn't martial arts, it's a joke." And the girl then said, My friend, who's 11, is a black belt and says this school is a waste of time because kids can't get black belts here, which got the Chicken Wing Ninjas very excited. This was a really good chance to make things messy. The Chicken Wing Ninjas began to throw their quit bombs, quickly undoing individual triumph bombs made from It's Them dribble, dirty room fish, and bits of shoulda, woulda rust. And not just at the boy and the girl. They threw the quit bombs at all the kids in the class. The Chicken Wing Ninjas knew there was no way the teacher could explain why he didn't let the new students fight each other, why they had to bow and show courtesy and respect, or practice fighting moves that wouldn't work in a real fight right away, or why he didn't give black belts to children. And so they did everything they could to make things extra messy. The children in class began to talk over each other. One said, punching is easy, and another, I already know what fighting is. Another, I watch fighting on the internet and this isn't fighting. Another, fighting in video games is way more fun. And then, one after the other said, I want to quit. The Chicken Wing Ninjas were so happy to see the children become upset and disrespectful. The I want to quits and the I know fightings, of course, got the attention of Bizmo. But he didn't rush in to help. Bizmo sat on a light and watched from just above the class. He knew that this martial arts teacher didn't need any help. In fact, Bizmo knew that good teaching is the best kind of help. Healing, energy, liberating power. The teacher said, Little ones, I am aware that you all know what fighting is. But I am not teaching you to fight for fun or about something you don't know like math and language you will use later. I am teaching you about something you see in the world and feel inside, something you think you already know and use now. The teacher got out his marker and told the children to come and sit around Fries, short for Frankenwise, the name he gave to a big whiteboard he usually drew on and told his weird and crazy stories about the shades of fighting during class. The teacher said, Little ones, imagine if Frankenwise was the world we see in ourselves and each other, and the good stuff of virtue, like compassion, was a white marker, and we drew this virtue in the world as a squiggle line. Can you see what it is? And all the children said, No. He said, imagine if the bad stuff of non-virtue, like being cruel to others, was a black marker, and we traced the squiggly virtue of compassion with it. Can we see it now? And the children said, Yes. Then the teacher smudged the white and the black together to make a big gray squiggly line and said, Do you see the virtue of compassion or the non-virtue of cruelty anymore? And the children said, No, they're mixed together. That is because this is a shade of fighting that is made from them both. The teacher said, This gray smudge is filled with shades of fighting called drama, which is an art word that means how our behavior makes the world and each other. You are all learning on your own the many shades of fighting and how to do them, just as everyone does. But to be an artist of this, we must undergo the difficult task of becoming familiar with the white of our virtues and the very important but troublesome black of the non-virtues that fighting is made from, like pulling a girl's hair and pushing a boy off his seat. This kind of art is not about how well you can fight another, even though it is what it may look like. It is about exploring the shades of fighting as we first recognize it, so that with guidance we can nurture the artistic wisdom to balance it in ourselves. The quit bombs of the Chicken Wing Ninjas were no match for the wisdom of the martial arts teacher. And so, as the children bowed out of the class to go home, the Chicken Wing Ninjas took what was left of their quit bombs and left as well, but in great and deep disappointment. The end. Do you see how non-virtues like cruelty and gossip make problems for us, and how they also help us discover strengths and virtues like dignity and compassion? And though we all would rather not have the black of the non virtues in ourselves, we couldn't see the white of the good ones without them. Remember, it is much easier to correct our behavior and to heal from this kind of learning when we are young than when we are older. With training and practice, I'm sure you'll find your way. See you next time.